When Isabella Moreno hired a warm, smiling nanny to care for her baby, she thought she was gaining peace of mind. But weeks later, bruises began to appear, and something in her heart said this wasn't just clumsiness. What she discovered on a hidden camera would shock the nation, ignite a movement, and turn one mother's heartbreak into a rallying cry for justice. Please subscribe to our channel. We're building a community where kindness is our most cherished and honored word. Isabella Moreno, 26, a graphic designer and first-time mother, spotted it one night while changing Zoe's diaper under the gentle glow of a moon-shaped nursery lamp. Her brow furrowed with concern, but she dismissed it as a minor mishap. She probably just bumped her leg on the walker. Boom, Isabella murmured, kissing Zoe's tiny toes and forcing a smile to quiet her rising worry. But the next morning, more marks appeared, faint, splotchy bruises on Zoe's chubby arms, a smudge on her lower back, and a thin, angry red streak across her shoulder, as if someone had gripped her with force. Isabella's stomach twisted, a cold knot of dread tightening. She had returned to her demanding job at a marketing firm 6 months earlier, after her maternity leave ended. Balancing her career and motherhood was a daily struggle, but Isabella took pride in managing both with fierce determination. To ease the strain, she'd hired Nora, a nanny with a polished resume, Sisu, glowing references from multiple families, and 15 years of childcare experience. Nora 40 was the picture of professionalism, calm, courteous, always arriving in a neatly pressed sage-green uniform, her auburn hair tied back in a tight ponytail, and wearing a warm, practiced smile that seemed to charm everyone. She arrived at Isabella's cozy suburban home every morning at 7 a.m. sharp, greeting Zoe with a cheerful, "Good morning, my little star," to neighbors, friends, and even Isabella's extended family. Nora was a godsend, a reliable caregiver who seemed to adore Zoe. But as the bruises multiplied, Isabella's maternal instincts began to scream that something was terribly wrong. During a quiet moment over breakfast, Isabella broached the subject with Nora, her voice steady but her heart pounding. The nanny didn't flinch, her tone light and reassuring as she sipped her tea. "Now you know how active babies are, always crawling into things," Nora said with a soft chuckle, stirring honey into her mug. They're like little whirlwinds bumping into furniture. I've seen it 100 times with other kids." But Zoe wasn't a whirlwind. She was a gentle, curious baby, watchful, sensitive, and cautious for her 15 months. Lately, though, Isabella noticed troubling changes in her daughter's behavior. Zoe had grown quieter, her wide blue eyes darting nervously at sudden noises, and she seemed to shrink away from quick movements, her tiny body tensing. She'd started fussing whenever Nora entered the room, her small hands clutching at Isabella's sweater in a way that felt desperate. One morning, as Isabella prepared to leave for work, Zoe clung to her leg, sobbing inconsolably, her cries echoing through the house and piercing Isabella's heart. That night, after tucking Zoe into her crib, Isabella examined her daughter's back under the nursery's dim light and froze. The bruise wasn't random, it was elongated, almost like the imprint of fingers. Too precise to be from a fall or a toy. Sitting on the nursery floor, Isabella held Zoe close, rocking her gently as her pulse raced. "This isn't an accident, my sweet girl," she whispered, her voice trembling with fear and resolve. "Something's happening to you, and I'm going to find out what." The next morning, Isabella went through her usual routine, kissing Zoe's forehead and heading to work with a forced smile. But before leaving, she retrieved a small wireless camera from a locked drawer in her home office, where she kept her design portfolios and client contracts. She carefully tucked it behind a stack of colorful picture books on the nursery bookshelf, its tiny lens peeking out just enough to capture the room's entirety. The motion-activated device was linked to an app on her phone, and Isabella double-checked its battery and connection, ensuring it was concealed among the stuffed elephants and board books. She didn't tell a soul, not her co-workers, not her sister, not even her husband, Raphael, who was across the state on a 5-day business trip and unreachable, until the next evening due to a packed schedule. At 10:45 a.m., while Isabella sat in a meeting room reviewing campaign mock-ups, her phone buzzed with an alert, nursery motion detected. Her heart lurched. She excused herself, mumbling about needing a quick break, and slipped into the office stairwell, her hands trembling as she opened the app. The footage loaded, grainy for a moment before snapping into sharp, devastating clarity. Nora entered the nursery, her usual sing-song voice cooing, "Time to wake up, little one!" But the warmth vanished seconds later. Nora reached into the crib, grabbed Zoe by one arm and hoisted her up, letting her dangle in the air as Zoe wailed, her tiny legs kicking helplessly. "Stop that crying!" Nora hissed, her face twisting into a scowl. She dropped Zoe onto the changing table with a heavy thud, like a bag of groceries hitting the counter. Zoe's cries grew louder, more desperate, her face crumpling in pain. "Be quiet," Nora snapped, yanking a wipe from the pack and roughly pulling Zoe's legs to change her diaper, her nails scraping the baby's tender skin. Zoe squirmed, her sobs ragged. Isabella's knees buckled. She sank to the stairwell floor, her phone slipping from her hands as her vision blurred with tears, her breath coming in shallow gasps. Her fingers shook as she dialed 911, her voice barely steady as she explained the horrifying scene she'd witnessed. "My baby's being hurt," she choked out, giving the operator her address. Then she called her neighbor, Elena, a retired nurse who lived 2 houses down and had a spare key. "Elena, please," Isabella begged, her voice breaking. "Get to my house now. Check on Zoe. Don't let her out of your sight." Within minutes, Elena burst through Isabella's front door, her footsteps heavy as she climbed the stairs to the nursery. Nora was laying Zoe back in the crib, the baby's face flushed and streaked with tears, her breaths uneven from sobbing. "Step away from her," Elena said firmly, her voice steady despite her shaking hands, as she pulled out her phone to confirm the police were en route. "They're coming for you." Nora froze, her composed mask cracking like thin ice. Through the camera's live feed, Isabella saw something in Nora's expression that sent a chill down her spine. Not guilt, not panic, but a flicker of raw, unfiltered rage, her eyes narrowing for a split second before she regained control. Police arrived 10 minutes later, their sirens slicing through the quiet suburban street. Nora was handcuffed and led out of the house, her face impassive as officers escorted her to a patrol car. Isabella, speeding home from the office, her heart pounding in her chest, arrived just as the officers were taking statements from Elena in the living room. She rushed to the nursery, scooping Zoe into her arms, rocking her gently as tears poured down her cheeks. "You're safe now, my love," she whispered, pressing her face into Zoe's soft curls, the baby's warmth grounding her. I'm here, and I'm never leaving you again." But the nightmare was far from over. As officers searched Nora's belongings, left neatly packed in a tote by the front door, they found something deeply unsettling, a small, leather-bound notebook filled with meticulous notes, dates, times, and cryptic entries written in tight, slanting handwriting as if documenting a secret ritual. One line, scrawled in black ink, made the lead officer, Detective Salazar, go pale. "Child won't recall, same as the others." "What does that mean?" Isabella demanded, her voice shaking as she clutched Zoe tighter. Standing in the nursery doorway, Salazar, a seasoned detective with a weathered face, met her eyes with a grave expression. "We don't know yet," he said quietly, his voice heavy with unease. "But this isn't just about abuse. It could be part of something larger, more deliberate, something planned." He paused, choosing his words with care. "You said she came through an agency?" Isabella nodded, her throat tight. "Yes, a reputable one. They said they vetted her thoroughly. Background checks, references, everything." "We'll contact them immediately," Salazar said, jotting a note. "For now, don't discuss this with anyone, not neighbors, not family, not even on social media. And keep that camera on, just in case." That night, Isabella sat in the nursery, Zoe finally asleep in her arms, after hours of soothing with lullabies and gentle rocking. The room, once a sanctuary of pastel blue walls, stuffed animals, and a mobile of dancing clouds, now felt like a stage for secrets waiting to unravel. Isabella had trusted Nora, ignored her own instincts for weeks. and nearly lost her daughter to a predator disguised as a caregiver. But she wasn't letting go now. Something about this felt unfinished, like a shadow lingering just beyond the nursery's soft light. The next morning, Isabella sat at her kitchen table, a cold mug of chamomile tea untouched before her, staring at a preliminary police report an officer had left behind. She hadn't slept, her eyes red and heavy, her mind racing. Zoe was upstairs, napping under Eleanor's watchful eye, her soft breaths a small comfort, audible through the baby monitor. Isabella couldn't stop replaying the footage in her mind, Nora's voice shifting from sweet to venomous, the deliberate roughness of her hands, the bruise patterns that matched those awful marks on Zoe's skin, and that notebook with its chilling line, "Child won't recall, same as the others." Who are the others? She whispered to herself, her fingers tracing the edge of the report, her nails digging into the paper. Detective Salazar returned that afternoon, his face drawn, a thick manila file tucked under his arm. "Isabella," he began gently, sitting across from her at the table, "we've uncovered something deeply troubling." Laura had used a false surname. Her real name was Nora Caldwell, and she'd worked as a nanny in 8 cities across 4 states over the past 15 years. There were gaps in her employment history, months-long stretches, where she seemed to vanish entirely, leaving no trace. More alarming, 5 families had reported unusual injuries to their infants during her tenure. One child had suffered a fractured collarbone, dismissed as an accident after a fall from a changing table. Another developed severe anxiety, refusing physical contact and waking with night terrors. A third family noted unexplained rashes, weight loss, and lethargy in their toddler. A fourth reported a dislocated shoulder chalked up to rough play. A fifth family had noticed bruising and a sudden fear of bath time in their infant. Investigations were opened in each case, but evidence was scarce. Bruises faded, memories blurred, and Nora slipped away before charges could be filed. No one had connected the cases until now. "Her notebook has over 60 entries," Salazar said, his voice low, almost a whisper. "Most are coded, initials, dates, vague phrases. But one page listed an address we traced to a family in Seattle. Their baby died 4 years ago. The coroner ruled it sudden infant death syndrome, no questions asked." Isabella's hand flew to her mouth, her breath catching in her throat. "She was there?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Salazar nodded slowly, his eyes heavy with the weight of the discovery. "She was their nanny for 7 months. Over the next week, police combed through Nora's possessions, uncovering a trove of evidence hidden with chilling precision. Memory cards were found tucked inside makeup cases, sewn into the lining of jackets, and stashed inside sealed kitchen containers labeled as spices. The cards held hours of video footage from nurseries, children crying, Nora's voice calm and detached in the background, sometimes whispering phrases like "no one will know" or "you'll be fine." Some clips showed her pinching or shaking infants when alone, her movements calculated, leaving marks that could be explained away as accidents. She targeted families with working mothers, presenting herself as a reliable savior, earning trust with her warm demeanor and polished credentials. Before exerting control, she ensured no one questioned her, blending into each household like a ghost, her cruelty hidden behind closed doors. Zoe wasn't her first victim, but Isabella's camera had made her Nora's last. The story broke like wildfire, spreading across local and national news. Reporters and news vans crowded outside Isabella's house, their camera lights casting harsh shadows across her front lawn. Headlines branded Nora the silent nanny, a predator who'd slipped through the cracks of childcare systems. Parents across the state, then the country, flooded police hotlines, some wondering if Nora had worked for them years earlier, others reporting similar suspicions about other nannies. Isabella shielded Zoe from the chaos, focusing on her daughter's healing, holding her close, singing lullabies to coax her back to sleep, and watching her every moment to ensure she felt safe. Yet the house, once alive with warmth, soft giggles, and the hum of a lullaby mobile, now carried a heavy silence, as if the walls themselves held their breath, waiting for the full truth to emerge. 2 weeks later, Isabella received a call from a woman named Sofia Ramos, the mother of the Seattle baby who died. "I saw your story on the news," Sofia said, her voice fragile and trembling over the line. "I think she worked for us too." They spoke for hours, their voices breaking as Sofia recounted her own ordeal, bruises on her son, unexplained fevers, a sudden withdrawal in his final weeks before his death at 8 months old. She'd blamed herself, convinced by doctors, family, and even her own partner that she was overreacting, that her son's death was a tragic natural fluke. No one had believed her when she'd pointed out the marks, the changes in his behavior. Isabella listened, tears streaming down her face as she sat in her living room, clutching a photo of Zoe. "You weren't wrong," She told Sofia, her voice thick with emotion. "We weren't imagining things. We were right to trust our instincts." The evidence against Nora Caldwell was overwhelming, a tapestry of horror woven from videos, notebook entries, and the testimonies of families now coming forward. She faced charges of aggravated child abuse, attempted murder, manslaughter, and additional counts still being investigated as police uncovered more of her past. Her trial gripped the nation, with reporters dissecting her methodical cruelty, psychologists speculating about her motives, and advocates calling for reforms in child care oversight. Isabella stayed away from the media circus, choosing to rebuild her life with Zoe. She repainted the nursery a soothing lavender, replaced the crib with a toddler, a bed adorned with moon-shaped pillows and a soft knitted blanket, and filled the room with new toys, a plush giraffe, a musical stacking tower, anything to bring joy back to the space. Zoe's smiles returned, her giggles, a quiet triumph over the darkness that had touched their lives. Each laugh felt like a small piece of their world being reclaimed. 10 months later, Isabella founded a non-profit called Safe Haven Watch, dedicated to helping parents afford in-home surveillance systems, providing abuse prevention workshops, and advocating for stricter background checks and monitoring in childcare. She partnered with local organizations to offer free training sessions for parents, teaching them to recognize signs of abuse, trust their instincts, and navigate the complexities of hiring caregivers. The first donation came from Sofia Ramos, accompanied by a handwritten note: "This won't bring my son back, but it might save another child. I'm with you." Isabella framed the note, keeping it on her desk as a reminder of why she fought, a quiet tribute to the children they couldn't save, and a promise to protect others. One evening, as Zoe slept peacefully in her new bed, Isabella sat by her side, holding her daughter's small hand. The faint bruises on Zoe's skin were nearly gone, fading like distant memories under the gentle glow of the nursery lamp. "Thank you, my brave girl," Isabella whispered, her voice thick with love and resolve, "for holding on, for surviving." Deep in her heart, she made a silent vow. No one would harm her daughter again, not in the quiet of a nursery, not behind closed doors, and never without a camera watching. She thought of Sofia, of the other families, and of the countless parents who might never know the truth about their own caregivers. Safe Haven Watch was her fight, not just for Zoe, but for every child who deserves safety. If this story touched your heart, please give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more gripping, heartfelt tales that uncover the unexpected and shine a light on resilience. Drop a comment below to let us know where in the world you're watching from. We love connecting with our community, hearing your thoughts, and building a space where stories like this spark change. Until next time, stay compassionate, stay vigilant, and keep watching.